Welcome to All Access with Clarissa Cardenas. Today's guest is stepping into one of the biggest moments of his career, as well as one of the most talked about creative collaborations of the year. Boys Noize is currently performing as a live creative partner on the 9 Inch Nails Peel It Back tour, not just as an opener, but as an integral part of the show. That collaboration has now evolved into 9 Inch Noize, which is a new joint project set to make its debut with a headlining performance this year at Coachella. At the same time, Boys Noize also co-produced the Tron Ares soundtrack alongside Trent Reznor and Atticus, further expanding a creative relationship that brings together underground techno, my personal favorite, industrial music, and cinematic sound design. Parallel to all of this, he continues to build his own world through ones and zeros. His label, launched in early 2025, spotlighting artists from the international underground the label represents. We recorded this rare, long-form sit-down inside Waterloo Records here in Austin, Texas. A full circle moment for an artist who began his journey working in a record store, crate digging as a teenager, and laying the foundation for the sound he's now bringing to stages around the world. In this episode, Boys Noize speaks candidly about artistry, collaboration, independence, and what it truly means to build something lasting. And yes, we also uncover some hidden tour Easter eggs, a secret DJ alias you might recognize, and close with a crate digging moment that just so happened to include his very first vinyl from childhood. All here on All Access with Boys Noize. Enjoy. I'm here with the one and only Boys Noize. Alex, welcome.
How you doing?
He's here in Austin at Waterloo Records, which is an iconic record store here in Austin. You have a background in record stores. It's kind of where you got your start, right?
True. Yeah, I worked in a record store myself. I started to buy a lot of house and techno records back in 80. 80, no, sorry, 90.
It's like, what's your
98.
Skincare? Tell me the skincare regimen.
98, 99, and I just, I went there every day, and then the guy was like, man, you here every day, why don't you work here? And I had other jobs to finance the vinyl back then, but then, I started working there when I was 15.
Wow.
And it kind of got me started into, everything more serious other than trying to make cool mixtapes for, the people I try to hook up with or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you were exposed to a lot of music, and that's kind of, you got first dibs, I'm sure, on seeing the newest. And has that kind of formed your music style now and how you kind of select tracks?
Yeah, it deeply shaped me. I mean, I was a fan of electronic music for a while, going to the Love Parade in Berlin as a young raver and stuff like this. But there was always something special about in the record store and the community about it, because the music you find there, you cannot listen to it anywhere else, especially back then. So, it's not music you hear on the radio. It's not music that your friends listen to. No one has access to it. It's only on vinyl. It's, house and techno back then was still not really underground. There's been big Eurodance movements even in the 90s and, early 90s. But still, the normal house record that would come out, it's only on vinyl. It's only for DJs. And I loved that. I loved finding music that no one else knows, and it's my own little thing. And, some other kids in my school thought I was gay because I was listening to house music and not rap or whatever. But I love being the outsider, and I love finding music that no one else knew. And I love being in this community of people that all share that. Yeah, and it definitely shaped me as a DJ. It shaped me as running my own record label. I always secretly, I started secretly thinking about having my own record label, and I loved all the Chicago stuff and the producers that would put out records like a week, every 2 weeks there's a new whatever, DJ PA record or, whatever it was at that time. And just this idea about making tools for the clubs and all of that. Good times.
So how did you mentioned something that I think a lot of people, especially nowadays where they're exposed to all different types of music, but they feel like they have to stay in one lane, or they feel like they can't really cross genres. And we'll talk about obviously the big tour that you're on right now, but what kind of kept you going, where you were unafraid to try different genres and, like you said, to kind of go against the grain?
Yeah, maybe it's my problem with authority, which started in school already.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I see something, someone telling like it's only this way or that way, I'm immediately triggered. I don't know, I can't help it. And back then, when I started off, the house and techno scene, let's stay there for instance, was quite divided. The let's say Berlin was techno, rave, and the real techno DJs, they're like, we don't mess with the house people. It's too soft. It's like handbag, like, all the singing and I loved house music. I loved all the origins of it. I love soulful house. I love everything that's it's basically the progression of disco music, which I absolutely love, and I have a huge disco collection. But it is true that at some point it just got so boring. And so I remember my first DJ gig, I was 16, my first proper DJ gig in a house club. I already, as a warm-up DJ, I started to mix in just everything, like deep house. Obviously, as a warm-up DJ, you stay chill, you don't play the hits, you don't play anything that's too much, just get a
louder for the people in the back.
Yeah, I love being I love being a warm-up DJ. But truth is, I from day one I like to mix things, and it became more and more obvious the more I experienced being in a club and hearing just DJs staying in one thing, and I get bored. And I always thought, and there were records that allowed me to bridge these things, and I think that's the way you have to look at it as a DJ. Do you find a record how you can seamlessly bridge from one thing to another without feeling like, you're doing crazy like hip hop cuts or whatever, or like, you still want it to feel like one, which is the beauty of doing a constant techno set. I love that too. If you have like, they say they play like one record for like 4 hours. I like that too. It's more a trancey kind of thing. But yeah, when I DJ myself, I like to play different stuff.
And you really do. And we were talking earlier because I was first introduced to you on Friendship, which for people who are not familiar, that is a rave. It's a very, it's a giant rave cruise, and you're exposed to a lot of different types of electronic dance music. And you were one of the ones who just, in my opinion, just blew my mind because you were going through all the different genres. You'd be playing a techno set in one room, and then maybe, like you said, some disco or house or industrial techno. And that was the beauty of, and we were talking outside, is that you can go from not only DJing and being able to seamlessly transition between those genres, but also produce, which are two different skill sets that I feel like kind of gets lost among people sometimes because they feel like, okay, I just want to produce, or I'm just good at that, or I just want to DJ. So how has that been for you? Like doing, not like, where do you find the time to develop each of those skills? Because they are two different skill sets.
It's, it kind of went hand in hand. I did start producing a little later than DJing, but it's DJing definitely feeds my production 100%. And I guess my main thing was and is when it comes to production was thinking that, I'm playing all these records that I love, like a good new whatever techno record or house record. What's the point making something like that? Like someone else did it already. It sounds amazing. I'm a fan of it. I don't want to bite him. I don't want to like, steal his idea or whatever. So, I guess my intuition was always to just do something that like, what's my part? What can I do that feels different, that someone else would be like, oh, this is fresh because it's like whatever. But it's also not the easiest, to be honest. It's I know what I'm doing, and I know that I mess up a lot of people along the way where it's like, they like my records, but they I remember one of the first feedbacks I got from DJs when I started my label, and I sent out promos, and I got a fax from Laurent Garnier, one of the big European DJs from France, and he's like, "Man, I love your record, but I can't mix it." Because I would start the record right away with like a lot of information, and those are just little things. But in general, I like to think about just or I don't really think about it. It's just natural to me that I wouldn't just do what the others are doing, and that goes all along a lot of things in my life, basically.
Well, and speaking to today, because you are currently on tour with the legendary Inch Noize, can you speak to that collaboration and how that came to be and what that means to you?
Yeah, it's been a ride. It's really nice. The band Trent and Atticus, they're incredible. I was a fan obviously before they. There was a time I was banging their music. But he reached out a few years ago, with this idea about a project, and I've worked a little bit on it, and he pulled out of it, so it never happened. And then few years later, he called back with the Challengers movie soundtrack, and basically saying, "Hey, we've done the music for the movie. It's great in the movie. We don't want to release it like this. Can you do some sort of," he was saying, a DJ mix. So, a day later I sent him, even though it was like, it's all the different tempos and styles, I was like, okay, cool. A day later I sent him back a mixed version of it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's cool, but I like those parts where you added actually production and stuff. So here are the stems, try some stuff." I'm like, okay. So then I went in a few days, and on some more than others, I added some stuff, some I edited, and whatever I thought it needed to be more together, I did, and they released it. And then, one thing just came to another. Then he was like, "Man, we have this other project, and maybe cool." So I'm hanging out with them more and more. And then we worked on the current single, and the Tron stuff. And during that whole time and process, he came up with the idea of touring together, and he explained all the ideas he had, and I was really skeptical at first,
Okay, well, what was that like? Because like you said, this is something that I really feel is groundbreaking, because you have not seen traditionally a DJ producer with an artist.
I just at first I was just picturing me DJing and him emceeing next to me, and that was my absolute horror version of Inch Noize. And I'm like, I don't want to be responsible for the end of myself. I'm exaggerating here, but you get what I'm saying. So, but he's chill. He had this idea, and it's crazy how amazing it turned out and how much fun it is. And I mean, it's quite surreal standing in front of him, and he's singing right in my face, and I'm like,
it's amazing to watch. So, not spoiler alert, not for everyone who hasn't seen the show yet, but I had the opportunity to see the one in Fort Worth at Dickies Arena, and the show starts off with you just in the middle, again, the lighting, the stage design. How did that concept come to be, of, like you said, because not only the classic opener has the stage, and then they kind of just, remove the curtain and then the main stage setup, but you are actually in the show where you have your own kind of your DJ setup, and then there's that stage B where you're actually performing with them and performing songs with them.
A lot of it is Trent, for sure. There's also a great designer who helped, Todd and Mel. They're both incredible creative minds, and it's a lot of work. There's a lot of time you spend figuring that out. And I wasn't a part of that. The only thing I would say is, like, first of all, I like to be come to a concert and you don't hear random music. That was my main thing. Like, you know, you go in this, you know, big places, and before the first act comes on, you hear some AC/DC playing or whatever, you know, like you never know.
Uh-huh.
No offense against AC/DC, you know. But so I thought it would be cool to maybe design some sort of ambience for it. So I did that. So for 90 minutes you enter and it's like just ambient noise stuff, you know. And I'm actually the first to start a beat, and it's, you know, I'm DJing up there, but it's cool because I had also a period a few years back when I made my Plus Minus album that I was really inspired by actually Nine Inch Nails, early Nine Inch Nails, like, you know.
Moment there.
Yeah, and so I was DJing in clubs doing like a 4 or 5 hour set, and the first hour would be 100 BPM, 110 BPM of these like tribal, slightly industrial, slow techno, electro records. And so I had already a huge collection of that, and there was a lot of vinyl at that time that was kind of white label and kind of a new take on lo-fi inspired stuff like that. And so, you know, Trent's point was to not feel like you coming in and you're forced to dance, and I agreed with this, you know. So there's a lot of thoughts behind all of that, and you know, I'll switch it up every night, but in general it's just me creating a vibe. And I think what's so great about that versus, for instance, a band would do everything they can to get people's attention and rock it out the hardest, and you know, which is all good. But I think in this night and in this concept, it's cool that, you know, I don't need the hands in the air. I don't get, you know, I don't. So, you know, I can just provide a basically like a good atmosphere before the real show begins.
What has the feedback been like? Because you're getting in front of an audience that maybe, you know, they hadn't ever maybe heard of you, or maybe they're not exposed to that type, or they just, again, we talk about this one track mind, like I just like Nine Inch Nails and that's it. So you're exposing them to a different genre of music that maybe they hadn't been exposed to.
It's been surprisingly positive, to be honest. Everybody's been so nice, and the nights have started off and always a pretty cool vibe. It's quite funny to me because a lot of the records that I play, you know, half of it is my own music, but another half I'm playing other people's music, you know, and that music came out on small labels, you know, 500 vinyl only. So it's kind of crazy if you think, like, a lot of these artists, they hear the music that I'm playing from them, they hit me up, they're like, this is crazy, I'm hearing my stuff in these like giant arenas, this is so surreal. And I'm like, yeah, I know, because usually that sound doesn't work on a big floor. Like in clubs, it's cool when I'm playing a club for a few hours, few hundred people, I can play all of that for, you know, 1-2 hours. But to hear that music in that's quite cool, I thought. And you know, it's fun, man. And coming back, the feedback has been great. I mean, there's been all these surreal moments where people put up the lights, you know. I was posting I was posting on my whatever TikTok or whatever, you know, power ballads, because usually you put up lights for ballads, you know, when everybody's like, you know, sad song vibes, and they put it up to these like random underground industrial techno records.
That's crazy. So how, when you were younger, did you ever imagine that this was kind of a trajectory that you felt like you were heading towards, or did you just kind of go with the flow?
I mean, to be completely honest, I didn't even think about being an international DJ. At that time when I started, my first goal was to get back the money I was spending on vinyl, because I spent $1,000 a month for vinyl, and I worked hard for that. But the idea of an international DJ back then, and there were, you know, like Richie Houghton or Felix the Housecat or DJ Hell, who I admired, and they were all playing everywhere in the world, in New York and Tokyo and all of that. It just seemed so big, it seemed so far away. It seemed so like, this is so far away, and so and then even for many years after my first DJ gig when I was 16, it took 6-7 years till I had my first outside of Germany gig, and I was DJing a lot already, just in Germany, and maybe like in Austria, Switzerland, maybe in Holland and Amsterdam or something like. Yeah. But my first London gig was in 2000, after I started my own label, so it took a while. I mean, it's all relative, but coming back, I did not think about doing what I did even 10 years then later, and now I didn't even know I was going to do that a year ago, and I didn't have it in my mind as a thing, but it's fun. I love it.
Do you have any kind of guiding principles or anything that, like a filter for yourself to kind of decide which projects you're doing? So if someone's coming to you and they say, hey, I have this idea, do you take it through your own kind of like checklist on that, or how do you?
It's basically myself thinking, is it cool or not? That's all. I remember in the early days when I started to get a lot of remix requests, after I did, there was like a Depeche Mode remix and long time ago, and then more and more international acts started to. And I remember in 2010 or 8 or 9, I don't know, Lady Gaga asked me to do a remix, and at that time I thought, hell no, I'm not gonna put my name to like this like pop artist with, I love her now and we've worked together, but just that's how I thought back then. I just wanted to be only associated with stuff that I thought was cool, where I can put my name next to and I think it's cool. But that also means I'm doing stuff for my friends. Like I've done so many remixes for just the homies because I like that track. I don't care if they're big or not. And that's one thing I noticed now that not so many people do. It's, running my own labels and having signed young artists that I think their music is incredible, and I'm trying to get other people to remix them or whatever, or to collaborate. A lot of people are just here for the clout, and I always think, man, if you make something good and if the music is great, if you think the music is great, you can create that clout. And that's been my philosophy. It's like, I want to just make stuff with people that are cool and that make cool music, in my opinion, and that's all. And if it's not cool, I don't give a yeah.
Oh, there is, and there's so much pressure, like you said. I feel like I've talked to a lot of artists, and they say, social media, trying to keep up with that, or like you said, with the invention of TikTok. Yeah, there's a lot that they're being pressured to do, and it kind of takes them out of that creative space.
It's a cultural thing too. I've I gotta be real. Obviously, living in Berlin makes it a little more easier. Growing up in Berlin makes it more easier. Executing your creative ideas and having that freedom, because you don't have to hustle that hard to pay your rent. That's just facts. If you live in New York, it's a lot harder, and also because of how the culture is telling you what is success, that can play with your mind, so a lot of young producers you'd meet, or writers or musicians, they are looking to make something successful to get those numbers, and that's already putting your creative process in a different direction. I feel like, if you don't have to care. And now you hear that perfect example from all the producers from Brazil, for instance, like all the baile, crazy punk stuff. I'm obsessed with it because they're just doing what they love, and it's so uncompromised, it's just badass. That's new punk to me. And so, yeah, I've been lucky enough to evolve in that mind and have those opinions and have that freedom to really just do what I love. And I would always encourage any young producers to do that. But I also know how hard it is, and especially today where you have, I don't know how many songs are coming up on Spotify every day, hundreds of thousands.
There's a lot.
It ain't easy. I don't really have an answer to that today because, it is quite crazy how it has evolved with social media and all of that. And, most artists I know, they didn't sign up to be a promoter. They didn't sign up to be a marketing person. Most of the producers and musicians I know, they're not people that like to go out there and show their face, and especially in electronic music, we did it because it was faceless,
Right.
That was my whole thing. No one knows how I look like. I don't have to promote anything. I'll just put out the record and you play it or you don't. I don't care. So yeah, it ain't easy. But if there's a way to just do what you feel and evolve your own thing, that's definitely the way to go, I think, still.
So let's talk about your new label. So you currently have Boys Noize Records, and then you've started a new label, right? As of February, Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's a whole new concept about a label. I think the reality is you don't need a label. I think it's great that as a producer or a musician, you're able to put out music yourself, just do online distribution, whatever. Tomorrow you can have your songs up on, all the streaming platforms or whatever it is. That's great. I think that's amazing. What you don't have is a community. And so for me, the new label is more sort of creating this like collective of, like-minded people that are, we all do different stuff, but Ones and Zeros is kind of, the name is also, obviously it's the matrix, but it's meant to break the matrix because everything is ones and zeros. Everything is just, a digital life, your digital identity. And it's kind of, the idea is to break that and with a collective and just release in a different way. For me, one thing that I've been trying to figure out is what can you do to get excitement about a music release other than I'm doing a post on Instagram, I'm doing a freaking whatever video, and then tomorrow your timeline's already something else and that's it. Right. And that was it. That's the release of your music you've worked on for months or whatever, you bought all the stuff. So, I'm just trying to figure out ways to get excitement for that part. I love creating music, but the release, and that goes for a lot of people, is quite a difficult thing. And so we're tapping into other concepts and art, obviously, but it's you should definitely check out the Ones and Zeros. I didn't even come out announcing that I have a new label. I never posted be like, hey guys, it's time, and so I didn't want to do any of that either. So my friend Little Internet and myself, we came up with this concept of just spreading lies. So
that's what. Okay, now that makes sense. So when you go and look at the Instagram, because like you said, you have. I was like, wait, why snakes aren't real? What does that mean? Because you have these different things. So this makes sense now. Okay.
And we made all these like crazy videos.
You got me for sure. You got my
a
attention
lot of people.
With that.
It was. Honestly, it was crazy how it worked out, how perfectly it worked out, and within days we had crazy views and followers and all of that. We didn't do anything. We didn't hire anyone. It was just the three of us thinking about what to do. That's just goes a different way. And so we spread those lies and we put some music behind it, and the music hasn't still come out, and you know, it was a little coded. I love this idea of, again, me going back to the record store. You know, I'm just digging through music. You have to like put an effort to find the music you like. Like, what's that way today? You know, like, are you going on iTunes or Spotify and go through playlists? Yeah, it's cool. It's not so fun. So it's a lot of that. Like, put in some effort, you know. And same on the tour. I have, if you go to the Inch Nails gigs, I have T-shirts there, and there's a barcode, and that's not so new, but you know, if you buy a T-shirt and you scan the barcode, you'll find like 5 albums of myself and 3
Really?
mixtapes, and yeah.
I wish I had known that Easter egg before.
Yeah, so you know, just
Yeah.
you know, I like to
Love that.
engage a little bit, and you'll see people appreciate that too, and it's cool.
That's amazing. So you have so many different influences as well, and you're speaking, you know, all these different sounds. When do you finally settle on a sound? Like, how do you narrow in and you're like, okay, this is going to be something that I'm playing with versus this other one? Because I feel like you, with someone that has your creative mind, and you get inspiration from everywhere, how do you know when to kind of take something and run with it, and when do you know to stop? Because I feel like people will just continue to add, and then you have like the Rick Rubins that are like minimal, minimal, minimal. So where do you find that balance?
Yeah, it's all of it. It's a feeling in the end. You know, you know when something's finished, and you kind of, and whenever it's hard. You know, sometimes, I mean, I sit on a lot of unreleased music, as you know, a lot of my friends, and one gift that I have is definitely being able to know when to finish stuff. I like to finish stuff. I can't. I don't know, even if I don't release the music, that's one thing, because, you know, I make a lot of music and not everything is great, but I like to have something that I can play already, and, you know, get the idea of something that is closer to finished. And so, yeah, I like to finish stuff. But yeah, I don't really have a cure for that for other people, because, man, there's amazing producers that I love, and they just can't finish the music. And then like, a lot of times I'm like, just send it to me. I'll edit to you.
Send it to you, and you'll
I've
tell
had
them,
those
like,
moments.
it's done. Let's go.
I've had those moments a lot where I'm just editing something for a friend, and then he can put it out, because they know I'm quick with that. I think it brings it back to me being a DJ. It's really simple, because a lot of what I do has still the main element is club music, and so, you know, I get a structure idea, even though some structures of my own songs are weird, because, you know, there's this part and then that, and then everything changes, and there's a whole of that, but still maybe that helps me being just a DJ to put it together. I don't know.
Well, amazing DJ. Speaking of digging through the crates, you found something today when you were going through Waterloo Records. Let's talk about that.
I only spent 5 minutes, but I went straight to the special box sets, and can you see that?
It says Ministry Trax box.
Yeah, so there's a famous label called Wax Trax, kind of the one that did a lot of industrial records and, you know, slightly electronic EBM shit, mostly industrial and punk stuff. And yeah, and in this box there's just so many unreleased 12 inches and stuff, and there's also this amazing artist called 1,000 Homo DJs. You gotta dig out who that is.
So we'll let you figure that one out.
Yeah, this is cool. This is really great. I've never seen that box before, and yeah, again, there's a lot of. I look for a lot of 12 inches usually, because then the production was different, the mixes are different. Especially back in the day, you had the single version and then the extended. Mm-hmm. And the extended, you don't find that digitally anywhere. So that's one of the reasons why I still go to record stores, is to find these exotic 12 inches and dub mixes, and I don't know, it's inspiration. Sometimes I sample stuff. I don't know, you never know. But in this box, there's a lot of 12 inches and 100% a lot of stuff that I don't know. So, yeah, this is great.
That's exciting. So how do you blend? Like you said, you have your vinyls, and then you have you done any more vinyl like sets, or do you still?
Yeah, every now and then, when I play in Berlin, the last time I played at Berghain, I played vinyl because actually that's one club where playing vinyl sounds better than digitally, weirdly enough. Yeah, or I play in London. I've done like a vinyl set with my friend Errol Alkan, or we did a acid only vinyl set. Yeah, I do. I like it. The only thing is really, it's a convenience stuff. I mean, I remember the change, and I was a little late getting into CDs because I was like, man, vinyl. But the problem was not the travel with the vinyl, more that the clubs didn't have the right setup anymore. They just didn't really take care of the turntables. They're all dusty, and now, I mean, now I'm traveling with the little it's tiny little USB stick with my entire library on it. It's amazing. I can't lie. But it's also a different way of DJing with vinyl. It's just feels different, and and digitally I can skip parts, and I'm jumping around and making cue points and all of that, which is great. Makes it even better for me to be crazy. But yeah, I like a good vinyl set. Feels good.
What else is coming up for you? I know you're about to. Where are you heading off to now on your world tour? I know you still got a whole kind of other leg of that.
There's a few more gigs with 9 Inch Nails. We still have to hit LA, and Phoenix. That's where it stops for now. ... And I have a few more gigs for myself. A few festivals. Crossed Festival, for instance, great one in California. And then I'm just working on a bunch of albums. It's crazy. I'm producing a lot right now.
Where's this energy come from? Because I feel like you had a show Friday, then you're playing those after shows and Saturday. So where do you take the time, or how do you take care of yourself on the road with that kind of schedule? Because I know it's nonstop for you sometimes.
Yeah, you just have to take care of not sleeping and a lot of coffee.
I walked in there yesterday to the Concourse Project. Shout out to Kelly and Andrew. And I went in there, and I had just gotten back from your show in Fort Worth. I was right there jumping till 2:30 in the morning. So it was
same.
Like you said, that music.
It was incredible last night. Yeah, I love playing here in Austin. Shout out to the gang. Yeah. Good energy, a lot of cool people. That gives me energy. The crowd, the nights, the music, as weird as it sounds, I think that's actually where I gain a lot of energy. And then it's always a battle between the travel taking away energy. But again, when I'm traveling, it also gives me a good way to rest my mind and come up with ideas and, think and meditate in a way. But yeah, the people give me energy, the music gives me energy, and I love it. So
amazing. Yeah. What is a type of what's a perfect day for you? What does that look like?
Oh, well, that's a different thing.
Okay, well, just seeing, because again, it's music, and you're about to go to the studio after this. So just what would you consider? What would be a perfect day for you?
Well, I love being home, believe it or not. I love where I live. It's quite remote, and I love to have my long mornings. Make my breakfast, feed the chicken, and then just get my day started in the studio, talk to some people. I'm pretty simple. I don't need much, honestly. I love to get in my rhythm. When I'm on tour, I'm on a different rhythm. But when I'm home, I'm home. I'm like, So
you're able to kind of turn it off and kind of switch gears of tour mode versus being at home, rest
so
mode.
Far so good. Yeah, it's been it's good. You have to. The thing is, on tour, so much stuff happens, that can really annoy you in all different levels. So you have to, but you can't go crazy over it, because you have to mentally know that you're on tour. different, you won't be able to sleep perhaps. Maybe one night is 2 hours and then you fly and another flight and then 2 hours drive to the festival. You play at 1 a.m, go back at 3, and then you have to get up at 8, catch 2 flights, Europe, then, next week. I love it, but it's definitely takes out a lot of energy. But it's like, I don't know. You have to find a way to take small breaks, and especially for your mind. The worst is that if you are a touring DJ or a band or whatever, and you just start to hate it. And I've seen a lot of people around me, they play a lot and they hate it. And I'm like, okay, so either you should slow down or play music that you love, because that also happens to a lot of DJs that play a lot. They play the same stuff every night. Of course you start to hate it. I can't do that. So, it's a lot of things. It's a personal thing. Everybody's built different too, so, can't judge.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
I know,
you.
like you said,
Thank
you've
you.
been
Thank
on
you.
this crazy tour schedule, so we appreciate you taking the time out. How can people find you? I guess on all the different things.
All the regular stuff, Instagram, Boys Noize, TikTok,
And
Boys
the, and the
Noize,
new
whatever.
and the label.
onesandzeros.com. Definitely check out OAZ.
And
Yeah,
so probably something too for new music. If people want to send you music, how do they do that as well?
Good question. I think DMing me actually works quite often. SoundCloud works still. There's also a demo email. I don't know what that software is called, Trax something. But if you dig for it, you'll find it on Ones and Zeros. And I'll listen to demos all the time. A lot of the stuff I release gets either sent already from producers I know, or they recommend others, or I find something myself through cool people. I don't sign too much right now. I want to focus on the ones that, are cool. And there's exciting stuff coming on Ones and Zeros. I'm really stoked about it.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Alex, aka Boys Noize. And
Thank you.
stay tuned for all the exciting things that he has going on.
Okay, yeah, you got me right.
Oh, did
away. Oh my God. This is the first album I bought.
Really?
Yeah, so
I got goosebumps.
It's a cool story. So I have an older brother, nearly 10 years older, and so he was like breakdancing and stuff, and he was into music. He had a lot of records, and I destroyed one of his records, leaving it in the sun. It was D-Mob, Put Your Hands Together. It was like a big hip hop rap house record back then. Anyways, it was like all like, because if you leave it in the sun, it melts and shit. So then he was like, oh, you gotta, I was 6 or 7 or something. So he was like, you gotta buy me a new one. And so, I stole some money from my mother, or I don't know, like I got some, a few dollars together or whatever it was in Germany, D-Marks. I went to the record store, I found it, I bought it, and I just looked at that and it looked so cool. And it just came out, so I bought it, and it's one of my favorite albums of all time. And the sampling on this one, Prince Paul really, he is one of the best guys to pick samples. Great record. Yeah, you guys, wait, you prepared this.
No, these are all random. These are all random.
No. Okay, so yes, this is all like I gotta give credit to my brother, because I was small. I was how old was I? Like 6 or 7 or something like this. So, or 5, or I don't know. But this was just the music I was listening to because my brother was listening to it. So all the early rap, obviously Run DMC for sure. And then this is me being a teenager buying this album. Wait, you definitely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
This is another cool story because I made a song with Snoop Dogg, I wanted to produce for him so bad, and we made this rap track, and then he became Snoop Lion.
Right.
And he's like, no more rap. So then I put it out. But during that process, I got to meet him. We hang, and he passed me over his blunt.
Oh, please tell me.
And I was like, okay, I can stop making music now. Goals.
It doesn't get any better than that with Snoop Dogg.
Yeah. I like D'Angelo, actually, you know. I love Prince, so he had some vibes on Prince. I love Marvin Gaye. Love anything Marvin Gaye. I love Shaka Khan. I sampled Shaka Khan, I'm sure, at some point. Amazing. My daughter loves SZA. Shout out to her. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, all of this stuff is great. This is an amazing film, amazing soundtrack.
Have you done a lot of movie soundtracks, or have you gone into that world?
Not too much. I mean, I worked on the new
Tron,
Tron stuff, which is crazy. Before that, I've done stuff for it was Oliver Stone's movie called Snowden.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked on that one. Basically, everything electronic in that movie. That was me. But not too much, because the main guy, what's his name, Craig Richards, I think. Craig, yeah, he composed it. And then I did a theme song for another hacker movie in Germany called Who Am I? Yes, somehow all like hacker,
There's some deep
digital.
cuts, yeah.
I mean, I have like two guys. It's Prince and it's Bowie. Those are like, can't touch them.
So we have also too with David Bowie.
I mean, you definitely studied me well. I mean, you know, this is this guy.
Yeah, and then you had 9 Inch Nails that toured with David Bowie there for a
Surreal.
little bit, and then
Have
here
you
you
seen
are.
Have you seen the performance of Hurt? Them two together.
I haven't seen. I've only heard it.
I can't take it. It puts you to tears immediately. Depeche Mode. I love Depeche Mode. I just saw they have the box set, which I bought digitally, because I wanted to have it digitally, but it exists on, I think, on iTunes only. But they have this box set with a lot of remixes from the 80s, and again, 12 inches with different versions, and the box set is really good. Kraftwerk, obviously, you know, I'm German, but in general, they kind of, you know, started it all with electronic music, so you have to listen to Kraftwerk. I love this album too. The first album, Management, was great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love how uncompromised the production was too. It's pretty aggressively produced, and I love it. And not aggressive in like distorted or anything, but just like it's sounding banging. You know, Neu, yeah, that's some krautrock stuff from Germany as well. I mean, Conny Plank, one of the greatest producers from Germany. It was all around. He had this crazy community in Düsseldorf, and he produced, you know, Can and DAF, Deutsche-Amerikanische Freundschaft, who were a huge influence on me as well. And I think I'm not sure if he was part of Neu. The heads will kill me if I say something wrong. But yeah, this is good German. There's not too much great German music, but there is a good period, and especially in the psychedelic rock into electronic music, like late 60s into the 70s, into Kraftwerk. Yeah, that was all really, really great. And then the last good German stuff was basically in the 80s with the wavy stuff. Mm-hmm. And then after that, that's done. You know, good shit. Great shit. Cool. Yeah, you got great records there. I mean, I own most of them, and they are a big part of who I am. Yeah, that's the last thing I'll say. Like with vinyl, and why I'm so, you know, on my birthday, I love to go into a record store and just find stuff and just the vibe. But really, when you buy a record, and as a DJ or whatever, you attach a memory to it, and it's so cool. I can I have 25,000 records at home, and wow. I can tell you with every single one, 95% more or less, you know, when I bought it, did I play it, maybe there's a night attached, a moment. Yeah, so I forget a lot of things, but it's a good way for me to keep memory. Yeah.
So if you want him to remember something, make sure you give it to him attached to a music memory.
I think something physical, right? Mm-hmm. It's like if you collect something, then it could be similar. But Mono's
Yeah,
the
music
best.
is healing. Music's
Yeah.
always the answer.
Yeah.
So
Music's the answer. There you
well,
go.
thank you so much for being here. Enjoy the rest of your time in Austin,
Thank you.
and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Cheers.
Awesome. Cheers.